Because I think that we can all admit, if we were to be honest about it, that we struggle at times with the concept of love. We struggle with what we expect others to do that makes us feel loved, or is that loving to do? And also what we're expected to do that would be considered love or loving to do. Because we're told to love our Elohim with everything, basically, right? All our heart, our mind, our being, our strength. Well, what does that look like? How do we do it? Well, we talked about that for most of the first 20 or so parts. And now we're transitioning over to, well, really the harder part in some ways. How do we love each other? So here he makes the first human beings and tells them human beings' job is to be a branch and to bear fruit. Oh, did you see that when you first were reading this in Genesis chapter 1? Okay? So he tells us at the very beginning of creation what he's telling us in John 15. You are branches. He made them male and female, man and woman. He made them, created human beings. And what are you to be? A branch plugged into the vine, bearing fruit. We need to look at and make sure we're paying attention to how the Father loves the Son, how the Son loves us, is then how we love each other. Okay, so this is called what? Discipleship. This is discipleship. The Father discipled the Son. The Son then did what he was trained to do, and then discipled others to do what he did. And then we go and do the same. This is called discipleship. It's not just being a student in a classroom. This is discipleship. It's a whole different level of relationship. If I were to ask you who you discipling with, who you covered by, who you submitted to, you would have no answer. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Some of you would say, well, Yeshua. Yeah, but Yeshua does it through a particular type of structure. So if you're not in that structure, you're really not submitted to Yeshua. I hate to say that. I don't want to upset you or offend you, but that's truth. To be submitted to Yeshua is to be submitted to the way he does it, and he does it through this structure. So if you're not going to find the person within the structure that you need to be covered by and accountable to and submitted to, then you're really not submitted to Yeshua. If the Father's giving him commands and he's staying in the Father's commands and he's a good disciple, then that's exactly the kinds of commands, or not kind, the exact same commands he's giving us. Because that's the duplication of discipleship. So when he says, as I have stayed in my Father's commands and therefore stay in his love, if you stay in my commands, which essentially are the Father's commands, because I don't say anything that he hasn't told me to say, I don't do anything he didn't tell me to do. And by the way, that doesn't mean that he's just a parroting back robot of some sort. He's been instructed by his Father. They know what it literally says, but what did they intend when they put the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, all these amendments to the Constitution? What did they mean when they protected those certain rights, those kind of things? Okay? The court has to decide, but what are they deciding? Not the mechanics of it necessarily. Because if the mechanics are black and white issues, it doesn't get to the Supreme Court. It's when it's something that's a little bit more gray, and somebody has to decide what was the original intent and how to apply this. Well, guess what? The Torah is the same way. You've got the truth, and then you got the Spirit. And the Spirit is the fullness of how it was intended. Because if you can embrace these things and understand your role, it starts off with the role. You're a branch. You have a job to bear fruit. How do you do it? You guard my commands. This keeps you in a place of love because you need love to grow. So you understand all that. Guess what's going to be another aspect of all that? You're going to be overflowing with joy. Overflowing with joy. To understand what the fullness of joy really feels like. He says, my joy. Can we agree that whatever is out there that's good, Yeshua has it more fully than anybody? So if he says, my joy, I'm hoping will be in you, I can't even imagine what that must feel like. No greater love than this, than you lay down your life for your friends. So let's first define friends. Okay? So first of all, friends is not saying everybody with a pulse. Okay? Because some of you don't understand the nature of your relationship with everybody on the world. Okay? There is those inside the covenant, inside the camp, and everybody else. That doesn't mean that we're better and they're worse. It just means that there's a difference at the moment. We're hoping that someday they'll all be in the same place. We'll all be in the camp. But right now, there's us and them. Not because we want it to be that way, nor should we look at them as them. But recognize you are in the world, you're not of the world. But some of you are going to judge and think, yeah, but I know him, and I've seen this, and I know that. He can't possibly be anointed because he's a human being with flaws. I don't see anybody in your Bible from Genesis to Revelation that doesn't have that problem but one. Only one in your whole book for 6,000 years worth of information is perfect. All the rest of them, lots of interesting flaws, including David HaMelech, King David, all of them. And so the emotional part tends to be, in my opinion, our defense mechanism not wanting to submit. Our defense mechanism not wanting to acknowledge that we're supposed to actually get under a covering. The plants, they grow based on sunlight and based on our giving them CO2. They like carbon dioxide, it helps them to live, and they photosynthesize because of the sunlight. Okay, so in our example, what? So we get everything that gets breathed out of the mouth of Elohim and the light, Yeshua. It's the same analogy. He never really mentions that in here, but I want to give you that analogy, right? What helps plants live? Light and CO2, stuff we breathe. Well, we're the same way, right? We are fed by what? Every word, everything that comes out of the mouth of Elohim. That's our CO2. That's what feeds us. And then what do we need? We need light to synthesize all the rest of the stuff that we need. But this is all structural, and it's all in the context of love.